Listen and listen carefully. This is not random. This is not just another message you happen to stumble upon while scrolling, distracted, tired, or searching for something you couldn't quite name. No, this moment right here had been orchestrated with precision. There was a reason your eyes paused. There was a reason your spirit leaned in. There was a reason something inside you whispered, "Open this, don't ignore it." That was not curiosity. That was a calling. Because somewhere deep within you, you felt it, haven't you? That strange tension lately. That unexplainable heaviness. That feeling like something has been working behind the scenes. Something you couldn't see, but you could sense. Conversations that felt off. People who suddenly shifted. Doors that should have opened but didn't. And through it all, you kept asking yourself, why does it feel like something is happening around me but I can't fully see it? Now hear this clearly. You were not confused, you were being protected. Because if you had seen everything at once, the whispers, the hidden intentions, the spiritual movements, you would have reacted too soon. You would have tried to fix what heaven was already handling. You would have stepped into battles that were never yours to fight. So God allowed a pause, a silence, a delay that didn't make sense. But now that silence is breaking, and this message is the interruption, not a gentle one but a divine one, the kind that cuts through distraction, the kind that pulls you out of autopilot, the kind that makes your heart beat just a little faster because something in your spirit recognizes, this is for me. Yes, you. Not the person next to you. Not the thousands who might hear similar words. You. Because there was a moment, recently, when something shifted in your life. You may not have had the language for it, but you felt it. A disconnect. A delay. A strange resistance where there used to be flow. And you tried to explain it logically, but it didn't add up. That's because it wasn't logical. It was spiritual. And heaven had been watching. Watching the pressure build. Watching the confusion try to settle. Watching the enemy attempt something bold, something hidden, something that involved your name. But here's what changes everything. God saw it before it ever reached you. God stepped in before it could complete. God overturned what was meant to harm you before it could take root. And that's why you're here right now. Because this is not just information, this is revelation. This is the moment where heaven says, enough confusion, enough delay, enough hidden attacks. It's time for you to see. And let me tell you something that might shake you a little if you had ignored this moment, if you had scrolled past, if you had said, I'll come back to this later, you would have missed a divine signal meant specifically for this hour. That's how precise this is. That's how urgent this is. Because what's about to unfold next, what you're about to understand, will explain everything you've been feeling but couldn't name. The tension, the distance, the shift, the resistance. It all has a source. And in the next part, that source will be revealed. But before we go there, I need you to do one thing. Pause. Breathe. And acknowledge this truth. You were led here on purpose. Not by accident. Not by algorithm. Not by chance. By divine alignment. Because heaven needed your attention right now before something significant unfolds. And what happens next? It will either be missed or recognized. And you were chosen to recognize it. Type I am awake in the comments if you feel this message stirring your spirit. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around you. And I'll listen, because this is where the truth begins to unfold. There was a moment, yes, a real moment, when your name was spoken, but not in a place of love. Not in a place of blessing. Not in a place where your future was being protected. know your name was carried into an atmosphere that did not celebrate your destiny. It was mentioned in a space where intentions were hidden, where words were layered, where what looked harmless on the outside carried something far deeper underneath. And the reason you didn't see it is because it was never meant to be seen with natural eyes. It was subtle, quiet, strategic. Because attacks that are loud can be defended quickly, but attacks that are hidden attempt to settle slowly, to plant seeds without being noticed, to create confusion instead of confrontation. And that is exactly why, over the past season, things around you began to feel off. You tried to explain it. You told yourself maybe you were overthinking. Maybe you were just tired. Maybe life was just being unpredictable. But deep inside, something kept whispering, "This isn't normal." And you were right. Because what you were feeling was not fear, it was discernment trying to wake up inside you. There were conversations you were not present in. There were intentions you were not aware of. There were moments where your name was carried into spaces where people smiled in public but questioned you in private. And the most unsettling part is this: some of those voices were not distant. They were familiar. They sounded like people you trusted. People who knew your story. People who had access to your life in ways others did not. That is what made it dangerous. Not because they had power over you, but because they had proximity. And proximity, when mixed with hidden intention, creates the illusion of safety while quietly working against your peace. This is why certain interactions began to feel different. This is why certain energy shifted without explanation. This is why you started noticing small things, tones, pauses, reactions that didn't align with what was being said. You weren't imagining it. You were sensing the echo of something that had already been spoken. Because when your name is released in the wrong atmosphere, it creates ripples. Not permanent damage, but temporary disturbance. A kind of interference that tries to slow momentum, cloud clarity, and create emotional weight where there should be peace. And for a moment, just a moment, it tried to touch your life. It tried to. But here is where everything shifts. It never completed what it was sent to do. Do you hear that clearly? It never completed. Because before anything could take root, before anything could fully form, before anything could establish itself in your path, heaven stepped in. This is what you must understand. What was spoken did not go unnoticed. What was intended did not go unchallenged. What was set in motion did not go unopposed. Because the moment your name was carried into darkness, it was already covered in light. And that is why, instead of collapse, you experienced confusion. Instead of destruction, you experienced delay. Instead of loss, you experienced resistance. Because what was meant to harm you was intercepted before it could manifest fully. It was blocked mid-motion, interrupted mid-assignment, overruled before completion. And that is why things felt strange but never fully broke. That is why doors slowed but did not close permanently. That is why people shifted but could not remove what was meant for you. Because there was a limit placed on what could touch your life. A boundary that could not be crossed. A line that could not be stepped over. And now that hidden moment is being exposed. Not so you react in fear. Not so you begin to suspect everyone around you. But so you finally understand why the last season felt the way it did. It wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was interference that failed. And the reason it failed is because your life is not unguarded. Your name is not unprotected. Your path is not unclaimed. There is a covering over you that does not sleep, does not delay, and does not overlook what concerns you. And now, what was hidden is losing its power simply because it has been brought into the light of awareness. So do not panic. Do not turn suspicious. Do not shrink back. Instead, stand in this truth. What was done in secret has already been overturned in the spirit, and what could not succeed in darkness will not survive in the light. Type ISC clearly now in the comments if this truth is settling in your spirit. Blessing code 2020 is now activated around your life. Now listen closer, because this is where everything turns. There comes a moment in every unseen battle, a moment when what has been allowed to move quietly is suddenly stopped with authority. A moment when what hath been tolerated for a season is no longer permitted to continue. A moment when heaven itself says, "This is as far as it goes and no further." You have entered that moment. This is the breaking point. Not your breaking point, but the breaking point of what was working against you. Because while you were trying to make sense of the delays, while you were navigating the confusion, while you were holding on to hope even when things didn't feel stable, something far greater was happening behind the scenes. There was a divine intervention unfolding that you could not see, but you were positioned perfectly within it. And now, it has reached its climax. Heaven has stepped in, not subtly, not partially, but completely. What was whispered in hidden places has now been brought before divine authority. What was attempted in secret has now been reviewed in the light. And what was meant to grow quietly has now been uprooted before it could mature. Do you understand what that means? It means the assignment against you has been interrupted permanently. This is not a delay anymore. This is a reversal. Because there is a difference between something being slowed down and something being stopped entirely. And what you are experiencing now is not just resistance fading away. It is opposition collapsing at its foundation. The heaviness you carried, it's lifting. That confusion that clouded your thinking, it's clearing. That strange feeling that something wasn't right, it's being replaced with clarity. Not because time passed, but because heaven acted. There was a decision made in the spirit concerning you. A declaration released over your name. A command issued that what was said against you will not stand. And once that command was spoken, everything began to shift. This is why, if you look closely, things have already started changing in subtle ways. Conversations feel different. Certain pressures are no longer as intense. Some doors that felt locked are beginning to loosen. Even your own thoughts are becoming clearer, stronger, more grounded. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Because when divine intervention takes place, it does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as quiet relief. Sometimes it appears as sudden clarity. Sometimes it feels like a weight you didn't realize you were carrying has simply disappeared. That is what happens when something is overturned in the unseen realm. And make no mistake, something hath been overturned. What was aligned against you has lost its footing. What was structured to block you had been dismantled. What was meant to redirect your path has now been reversed to serve your purpose instead. This is the part many people miss. They think the battle ends, and everything simply returns to normal. But no, when heaven intervenes, it does more than restore. It repositions. It takes what was meant for harm and restructures it to benefit your future, and turns interference into instruction. It transforms opposition into opportunity, which means this: the very thing that tried to delay you will now accelerate you. The very moment that caused confusion will now bring clarity. The very resistance you faced will now become the reason you move forward with greater strength, greater awareness, and greater authority. Because you are not coming out of this the same. You are coming out of this sharper, stronger, more discerning, more aligned. And that is exactly why the attack could not succeed. Because it underestimated what was protecting you. It underestimated the authority covering your life. It underestimated the timing of heaven. And now, what once seemed like a setback is revealing itself as a setup for something far greater than you expected. So do not look back at the past season with fear. Do not replay what happened with anxiety. Do not wonder what if, because what was meant to happen did not complete, and what was stopped will not receive. This is your confirmation that the turning point has already occurred. You are no longer in the moment of interference. You are standing in the moment of reversal. Type IT is reversed in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your destiny. As this reversal unfolds, understand this. Every message like this is a seed of light sent into someone else's darkness. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a platform. You are helping God reach another soul who is still trapped in confusion, waiting for their moment of clarity. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And right now, that promise is alive over you. If you feel the stirring in your spirit, this is your moment to act, to sow, to participate in what heaven is doing. I'm stepping forward in faith, knowing that my seed will unlock someone else's breakthrough. Your obedience in this moment becomes a river of truth flowing into lives you may never see, but heaven records every act. So move now, respond now, and release your support with purpose, because this is not just giving. This is alignment with a divine assignment. And now listen, because what you are about to understand is not symbolic. It is active. There was a moment, long ago, when Jesus walked into a place that was supposed to be sacred but had been corrupted. A place meant for purity had been turned into profit. A place meant for truth had been filled with manipulation. And when he saw it, he did not remain silent. He did not negotiate. He did not tolerate what had been twisted. He overturned the tables, not gently but with authority, not partial but completely. And what happened then is what is happening now in your life. Because what was done concerning your name, what was attempted behind closed doors, what was set into motion in secrecy, it reached a point where it could no longer be allowed to stand. It crossed into a space where divine justice had to respond. And when heaven responds, it does not respond weakly. It responds with precision. It responds with power. It responds with finality. This is that moment. The tables have been overturned. Everything that was arranged against you, every hidden intention, every quiet agreement, every misaligned structure that tried to work against your peace has been disrupted. Not adjusted, not slowed, disrupted. And when something is overturned, it cannot function the same way again. Do you understand what that means for you? It means whatever system was quietly working against your progress has lost its order. The structure it relied on has been shaken. The balance it tried to maintain has been broken. And now, what once looked stable is collapsing under its own weight. This is why you may begin to notice something very specific in this season. Things that were hidden will not stay hidden. Things that were controlled will start slipping out of control. Things that seemed organized will begin to fall apart in unexpected ways. Not because chaos has entered your life, but because order is being restored. Divine order. And divine order does not coexist with manipulation. It removes it. This is why certain people may begin to act differently around you. This is why certain situations may suddenly feel exposed. This is why things that were once quiet may become obvious without anyone needing to explain them to you. Because when Jesus overturns the tables, exposure follows. Not to embarrass, not to create drama, but to remove what does not belong. And here is what you must hold on to in this moment. You are not the one being exposed. You are the one being protected. The exposure is not coming to harm you. It is coming to free you from what you could not see clearly before. Because there were things positioned around you that looked normal but were never aligned. There were dynamics that seemed stable but were never secure. There were connections that felt familiar but were not truly for you. And now, those tables are being overturned. Which means this what cannot stand in truth will begin to fall away. What cannot remain in light will begin to reveal itself. What cannot align with your future will begin to separate from your present. And as this happens, you must not panic. You must not try to hold on to what is being removed. You must not attempt to rebuild what heaven is dismantling. Because what is being overturned is not meant to be restored. It is meant to be replaced. Replaced with clarity. Replaced with alignment. Replaced with connections, opportunities, and pathways that actually match who you are becoming. This is divine justice in motion. Not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. And here is the part that changes everything. When Jesus overturned those tables, he did not ask permission. He acted because authority was already his. In the same way, what is happening in your life right now is not waiting for approval from anyone around you. It is not dependent on human agreement. It is not limited by what others think, say, or attempt. It is being carried out by divine authority, which means it cannot be reversed. It cannot be undone. It cannot be stopped. So if things feel like they are shifting faster now, if certain illusions are breaking quicker than expected, if clarity is arriving in ways that feel almost sudden, understand this. You are witnessing the aftermath of overturned tables. And once that process begins, nothing remains the same. Not the environment, not the dynamics, not even you. Because you are being repositioned into a space where what surrounds you reflects truth, not illusion. Alignment, not confusion. Peace, not hidden pressure. So stand still in this moment. Do not interfere. Do not question what is being removed. Do not doubt what is being revealed. Because divine justice has already been activated, and what has been overturned will not be rebuilt. Type divine justice is active in the comments if you receive this. Lesson code 4040 is now activated around your life. Now listen carefully, because this is where the truth becomes undeniable. You may have wondered, even after everything you've heard so far, if something was truly said against me, if something was truly attempted, then why did it not fully succeed? Why didn't everything collapse? Why didn't everything fall apart the way it could have? Why are you still standing, still moving, still progressing, even if it felt slower than expected? This is the answer. Because what was planned against you was never stronger than what was placed over you. There was a miscalculation, a serious one. The moment anything was arranged with your name attached to it, it assumed that you were unguarded. It assumed that your life was open territory. It assumed that your path could be altered without resistance. It assumed that what was spoken in hidden places could override what was already written over your destiny. But that assumption was wrong. Completely wrong. Because what they could not see, what they could not measure, what they could not understand was the level of covering that exists over your life. A covering that does not depend on your awareness to function. A covering that does not weaken when you feel tired, confused, or uncertain. A covering that remains active even when you do not fully understand what is happening around you. That covering is the reason everything failed. Yes, it may have caused interference. Yes, it may have created temporary delays. Yes, it may have stirred confusion for a moment. But it could not complete its assignment. Because completion required permission, and permission was never granted. There is something you need to understand at a deeper level. Not everything that is attempted is allowed to finish. And in your case there was a boundary that could not be crossed, a line that could not be stepped over, a limit that could not be exceeded. So what happened instead? The plan began, but it lost strength. It moved forward, but it lost direction. It tried to take form, but it could not hold itself together. And eventually it collapsed under the weight of its own failure. This is why, when you look back at the past season, you will notice something very specific. Things never fully broke. They stretched, but they did not snap. They shook, but they did not collapse. They slowed, but they did not stop permanently. Because every time something tried to push further, it was met with resistance that it could not overcome. That resistance was not random. It was protection. And that protection was constant. Even in moments when you felt alone, you were not unguarded. Even in moments when you felt uncertain, you were not exposed. Even in moments when you questioned what was happening, there was something standing between you and what was trying to reach you. That is why you are still here. That is why you are still moving forward. That is why you are now stepping into clarity instead of confusion. Because failure was built into what was sent against you. It was never designed to succeed fully. It was only allowed to reveal, not to destroy. And this is where your perspective must shift. Because what felt like a setback was actually a limitation placed on the attack. What felt like delay was actually protection in motion. What felt like uncertainty was actually interference, being blocked before it could settle. Now here is the part that changes everything. Not only did it fail, but it cannot be reactivated. Do you hear that clearly? It cannot restart. Because once something has been exposed and overturned at this level, it loses access. It loses influence. It loses the ability to operate the way it once attempted to. Which means this: you are not just moving forward. You are moving forward without that same interference attached to your path. Without that same pressure sitting in your atmosphere. Without that same hidden resistance working behind the scenes. That season is closed. Completely. And what is ahead of you will not carry the same weight. It will not carry the same confusion. It will not carry the same limitations. Because what failed once will not be allowed to rise again. So do not carry fear into your next season. Do not carry suspicion into your next step. Do not carry the memory of what almost happened as if it still has power. Because it doesn't. Its power has been removed. Its influence has been broken. Its assignment has been canceled. And you are standing on the other side of that failure. Not as someone who barely survived, but as someone who was protected the entire time. That is your truth. That is your confirmation. That is your reality moving forward. Type IT failed completely in the comments if you received this. Blessing code 5050 is now activated around your path. Now pause for a moment and pay attention to what you have been feeling recently. Because something has changed you. Not dramatically on the surface, not in a way that everyone around you can immediately point to, but internally, subtly, undeniably, something is different. The weight that once sat on your chest does not feel as heavy. The confusion that once clouded your thoughts is not as thick. The tension that once followed you from moment to moment is beginning to loosen its grip. You may not have fully understood it. You may not have even acknowledged it yet. But your spirit has already recognized it. There has been a shift in the atmosphere around you. And this shift is not imaginary. It is not emotional. It is not temporary. It is the direct result of everything that has already taken place in the unseen realm. When something is overturned, when something fails, when something is blocked at a higher level, it does not remain contained in that realm alone. It begins to affect your environment. It begins to influence your thoughts, your interactions, your opportunities, your clarity. That is exactly what is happening now. You are stepping into a different atmosphere. And here is how you know. Things that once drained you are no longer affecting you the same way. Conversations that once confused you are now easier to read. Situations that once felt overwhelming are now easier to navigate. You are noticing more, understanding more, sensing more. Not because you suddenly changed overnight, but because the interference that once clouded your perception is no longer operating at the same level. You are seeing clearly now, and clarity changes everything. Because when your vision is clear, you no longer move with hesitation. You no longer second-guess every decision. You no longer carry the same emotional weight into every situation. Instead, you begin to move with awareness. You begin to respond with confidence. You begin to recognize patterns before they fully form. This is the shift, and it is happening right now. You may also notice something else. Certain people are becoming distant without explanation. Certain connections are losing their intensity without conflict. Certain environments no longer feel the same even if nothing outwardly has changed. Do not ignore this. Do not try to force things back to what they used to be, because this is not loss. This is alignment. When the atmosphere shifts, everything within it must adjust. What does not belong begins to separate. What cannot align begins to fade. What was only present due to confusion can no longer maintain its place in clarity. That is why things may feel quieter, more still, more intentional. Because the noise that once surrounded you is being removed. And in that silence, you are beginning to hear what actually matters. You are beginning to notice what is real. You are beginning to understand what is for you and what never was. This is not something to fear. This is something to embrace. Because this shift is creating space. Space for better connections. Space for clearer decisions. Space for opportunities that were previously blocked. Space for peace that does not depend on external validation. And most important, the space for what is about to enter your life next. Because understand this clearly. The shift is not just about what is leaving. It is about what is preparing to arrive. There is a transition happening. You are moving from a space of resistance into a space of flow. From a space of confusion into a space of clarity. From a space of hidden interference into a space of open alignment. And as this transition continues, you will feel it more strongly. Your instincts will sharpen. Your awareness will increase. Your decisions will become more precise. And you will begin to move in a way that feels natural but is actually deeply guided. This is what happens when the atmosphere changes. You begin to operate differently without forcing it. You begin to see differently without trying. You begin to understand things without needing explanation. And that is exactly where you are right now. So do not rush this moment. Do not try to figure everything out at once. Do not question why certain things are shifting. Instead, observe. Pay attention. Stay grounded. Because the shift is still unfolding. And what comes next will require you to be fully aware of what is entering your space. Because not everything that arrives will look obvious. Not everything that appears will come with explanation. But you will recognize it. Because now your atmosphere has changed. Type "I feel the shift" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 6060 is now activated around your environment. Now listen, because what comes next will not look the way you expect. You have already felt the shift. You have already sensed the clearing. You have already begun to notice that something around you is changing. But what you may not yet realize is this: the next part of your transition will not come through something familiar. It will come through someone unexpected. A stranger. Not necessarily a complete outsider, but someone you did not anticipate playing a role in your life at this moment. Someone who does not carry your past. Someone who is not tied to your previous struggles. Someone who is not influenced by the same dynamics that surrounded you in the last season. And because of that, you may almost overlook them. That is why this moment is critical. Because not every significant shift in your life will arrive with a clear announcement. Not every opportunity will come labeled as important. Not every divine connection will feel obvious at first. Sometimes, what carries the greatest impact enters quietly, casually, almost as if it is just another interaction. But it is not. This stranger is not random. This encounter is not accidental. This connection is not ordinary. It hath been positioned. Because once the atmosphere shifts, once interference is removed, once alignment begins to take place, something must enter to activate the next phase. And something will come through a person. And here is what you must understand clearly. This person is not coming to stay permanently. They are coming to deliver something. A word. An opportunity. A venarian. A piece of information. A moment that unlocks something you have been waiting for. That is their role. They are a messenger, not a distraction. But because they do not match your expectations, because they do not come in the form you imagine, there is a risk. You could miss it. Not because you are unaware, but because you are looking for something familiar. You are expecting something that fits your past patterns. You are anticipating something that aligns with what you have already known. But this next step is not connected to your past. It is connected to your future. And your future does not arrive through the same channels that once delayed you. It arrives differently. That is why this stranger matters. They are not carrying your history. They are not influenced by previous limitations. They are not tied to the environment that once surrounded you. They are entering from a different space, bringing a different energy, carrying something that has not been affected by what you just came out of. And when they arrive, it may feel simple. A conversation that seems casual. An introduction that feels normal. An interaction that does not immediately stand out. But something within it, something so will carry weight. You will feel it. You will notice it. Even if you cannot explain it immediately, there will be a moment where your awareness sharpens, where your attention focuses, where something inside you says, "Pay attention to this." That is your signal. That is your confirmation. Because now that the atmosphere has shifted, your discernment is active again. You will not recognize this moment through logic alone. You will recognize it through alignment, through clarity, through a sense of calm awareness that tells you this is not just another passing interaction. This is something more. And here is the part you must not ignore. This stranger is connected to what comes next. They are carrying access to something that has already been prepared for you but has not yet reached you. And the moment you recognize it, the moment you respond correctly, the moment you remain open instead of dismissive, something will begin to unlock. Not solely, not over time, but immediately. Because this is not about building something from nothing. This is about activating what is already ready. That is why timing matters. That is why awareness matters. That is why you cannot afford to be distracted now. Because what enters your life next will not wait to prove itself. It will simply appear, and it will require you to recognize it in real time. So stay present. Stay aware. Stay open. Do not assume. Do not dismiss. Do not overlook what seems small. Because what seems small may carry something significant. And this moment, this encounter, this unexpected connection is not random. It is sent. Type "I will recognize IT" in the comments if you are ready. Blessing code 7070 is now activated around your path. Now listen, because this is where everything begins to open. Up until this moment, you have felt the shift. You have seen the clearing. You have sensed the changes taking place around you. You have recognized that something has been removed, something has been overturned, something has failed that once tried to interfere with your path. But removal is only the first part. Clearing is only the beginning. Because once space is created, something must enter to fill it. And that is where the key comes in. This key is not physical, but its effect will be real. It represents access. Access to what was previously blocked. Access to what felt just out of reach. Access to something that was always meant for you but could not reach you until now. Because understand this clearly, what is being unlocked is not new in the sense of being created at this moment. It was already prepared, already positioned, already aligned with your life. But it required the right timing, the right atmosphere, and the removal of what could interfere with it. And now the time has come. This is why the stranger matters. Because they are not just bringing a moment, they are carrying the key. And when this key is placed into your life, something will begin to shift immediately. A door that once felt sealed will begin to open. A pathway that once felt unclear will suddenly make sense. A situation that once felt delayed will begin to move forward without resistance. That is what a key does. It does not create the door, it reveals that the door was already there. It does not build the opportunity, it unlocks what was already waiting. It does not force something into existence, it activates what has already been prepared. And this is exactly what is about to happen in your life. There is something that belongs to your next season that has been waiting for access, waiting for alignment, waiting for the right moment to connect with you. And that moment is now. This is why everything had to happen the way it did. This is why the interference had to fail. This is why the atmosphere had to shift. This is why certain things had to be removed. Because what is coming next cannot coexist with what was previously around you. It requires a different environment, a clear space, a more aligned version of you. And now you are in that space. So when this key arrives, do not hesitate. Do not overanalyze. Do not delay your response. Because keys are not meant to be studied, they are meant to be used. And the moment you recognize it, the moment you accept it, the moment you move in alignment with it, something will begin to open in real time. You will feel a shift in momentum, a release of pressure, a sudden clarity about what to do next. This is not coincidence. This is activation. And here is the part you must understand deeply. This key is not just opening one door. It is unlocking a season where things begin to flow differently, where opportunities align more naturally, where connections feel purposeful instead of forced, where your path becomes clear without constant struggle. This is what happens when you move into a new season. Everything begins to match your alignment. Everything begins to reflect the shift that has already taken place within you. And because of that, you will not have to chase what is meant for you. It will meet you. It will connect with you. It will open before you. But only if you recognize the moment. Only if you remain aware. Only if you trust what you sense when it arrives. Because the key will not come with explanation. It will come with confirmation. A knowing, a clarity, a sense that this is the moment you have been prepared for, even if you cannot fully explain why. So stay ready, stay aware, stay open to what is about to enter your life. Because what is coming next is not random. It is not accidental. It is not uncertain. It is aligned. And once it is unlocked, there is no returning to what was. You will have stepped fully into your next season. Type I receive the KY in the comments if you are ready for this shift. Blessing code 8080 is now activated around your new season. As this key begins to unlock your new season, understand this truth. Every message you hear here is not just for you. It is a seed planted into countless lives still waiting for their breakthrough. When you give through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description or QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a channel. You are opening doors for others who are still standing outside, searching for light. The Lord says, as you sow, so shall you reap. And right now, your giving becomes a living stream flowing into souls that are ready to awaken. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into obedience by releasing my seed into this moment, because I know it carries purpose beyond what I can see. This is not just generosity. This is alignment with a divine assignment that is moving right now. As you act, heaven records it, multiplies it, and returns it in ways you cannot predict. So move now, give now, and let your action become part of someone else's miracle unfolding. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything becomes personal. Up until now, everything has been unfolding around you. The interference was removed. The atmosphere shifted. The key has been prepared. The messenger has been sent. But this next moment, this next step depends on you. This is the test. Not a test of strength. Not a test of effort. But a test of recognition. Because what is coming into your life next will not force itself to be seen. It will not demand your attention. It will not announce itself loudly or repeatedly until you understand it. It will appear once clearly enough for you to recognize, but subtle enough that you can miss it if you are distracted. And that is why this moment matters so much. Because the difference between delay and movement, between confusion and clarity, between staying where you are and stepping into what is next, will come down to one thing. Will you recognize it? This is not about intelligence. This is not about experience. This is about awareness. Because when something is sent specifically for you, it carries a frequency, a sense of quiet confirmation that does not need external validation. It is not loud, but it is certain. It is not overwhelming, but it is unmistakable if you are paying attention. And that is where many people miss their moment. They overthink. They hesitate. They question what they already feel. They look for proof when they have already received confirmation. Do not fall into that pattern. Because this moment will not wait for endless analysis. It will require a response. A clear, simple-lined response. You will feel it when it happens. There will be a moment, brief but powerful, where everything aligns. Where what you are seeing, hearing, or experiencing suddenly carries more weight than it should. Where something inside you becomes still, focused, alert. That is the signal. Not fear, not pressure, but clarity. And in that clarity, you will know this is not ordinary. This is the moment. But here is what you must understand. Recognition is not just about seeing, it is about responding. Because seeing without acting is the same as missing it. You must be willing to move when the moment presents itself. Even if it feels unfamiliar. Even if it requires stepping slightly outside your comfort. Even if it does not match what you originally expected. Because what is meant for your next season will not always look like your past. And if you try to fit it into what you already know, you will miss what it is trying to become in your life. This is why awareness must be matched with trust. Trust in what you feel. Trust in the clarity that comes without confusion. Trust in the sense of alignment that does not need explanation. Because that is how you will recognize the sign. Not through noise, but through knowing. Now here is the deeper truth. You have already been prepared for this. Everything that has happened up to this point, every shift, every delay, every moment of reflection has sharpened your awareness. It has refined your perception. It has taught you to pause, to observe, to sense what is real and what is not. So this is not a moment you are unready for. This is a moment you have been trained for, which means you do not need to force anything. You do not need to search endlessly. You do not need to create pressure around it. You simply need to remain present, because the sign will meet you where you are. And when it does, you will know. Not because someone tells you, not because it is obvious to everyone else, but because it aligns with you, deeply, widely, clearly. And once you recognize it, everything will begin to move. The door will not stay closed. The opportunity will not remain distant. The path will not remain unclear, because recognition activates movement. It is the moment where preparation meets opportunity, and that moment is closer than you think. So stay aware, stay grounded, stay open, because what is about to appear will not ask for your attention twice. It will simply arrive and reveal itself to those who are ready to see. Type "I will not miss IT" in the comments if you are ready. Blessing code 9090 is now activated around your awareness. Now listen, because this is where the urgency becomes real. Up until this moment, everything you have heard has been building toward 1.1 window, one precise moment in time where everything aligns. And that moment is not distant. It is not something waiting weeks or months ahead of you. It is now. Tonight carries weight. Not because of the calendar, not because of coincidence, but because timing has converged. Everything that needed to be removed has been removed. Everything that needed to shift has shifted. Everything that needed to fail has failed. And everything that needed to be prepared is now ready. This is what creates urgency. Because when preparation meets timing, there is no space for delay. There is no room for hesitation. There is no allowance for distraction. This is why you feel it. Even now, as you hear this, there is something in your spirit that feels more alert than usual. Something that refuses to fully relax. Something that keeps your attention slightly heightened, as if you are waiting for something without knowing exactly what it is. That is not anxiety. That is awareness responding to timing. Because your spirit recognizes when a moment is important even before your mind fully understands it. And this moment tonight is one of those times. Here is an opening. A brief one. Not permanent, not endlessly available, but present right now. And within that opening, something is meant to reach you. Something is meant to connect. Something is meant to appear. But here is what you must understand clearly. Timing does not wait for comfort. It does not adjust itself based on your readiness to analyze. It does not pause while you question what you already feel. It moves, and it expects alignment. That is why this moment carries urgency. Because what is meant to happen will not force itself repeatedly until you accept it. It will present itself once clearly enough for you to act, but not in a way that demands your response. You must choose it. You must recognize it. You must move when it appears. This is the difference between those who step into their next season and those who remain where they are. It is not ability. It is not luck. It is timing and response. And now hear this carefully. If you treat this moment casually, if you remain distracted, if you assume that what is meant for you will simply return later, if you miss it now, you risk extending your own delay. Not because what is meant for you disappeared, but because timing shifts. And when timing shifts, the pathway changes. These changes. The flow changes. This is why tonight matters. Because right now everything is aligned for movement. Everything is positioned for access. Everything is prepared for activation. And all that remains is your awareness, your presence, your readiness to respond. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to search desperately. You do not need to create pressure around this moment. But you must not ignore it. You must not drift through it without attention. You must not treat it like any other time. Because it is not. This is a window. And windows do not stay open forever. They open, they allow access, and then they close once their purpose has been fulfilled. So stay present tonight. Stay aware of your surroundings. Stay attentive to conversations, interactions, and moments that seem simple but carry a deeper weight. Because what you are looking for will not look dramatic. It will look natural but feel significant. It will appear ordinary but carry alignment. It will seem small but unlock something much larger. And when it happens, you will know. Because everything inside you will become still, focused, certain. That is your moment. That is your signal. That is your opportunity to step forward without hesitation. Because this is not about waiting anymore. This is about moving when the moment arrives. And that moment is now. So do not delay. Do not hesitate. Do not second guess what you clearly feel. Because timing is already in motion. And what is meant for you is already on its way. Type "I am ready" tonight in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your timing. Now listen, because this is where everything becomes your responsibility. Not in a heavy way, not in a way that creates pressure, but in a way that brings clarity to your role in what is unfolding. Because up until now, everything hath been happening around you. Things have been removed. Tables have been overturned. Plans have failed. The atmosphere has shifted. The key has been prepared. The moment has arrived. But now it is about how you respond. Because alignment is not automatic. It requires participation. And your response in this moment will determine how smoothly you step into what has already been prepared for you. So what does alignment look like? It begins with stillness. Not inactivity, but stillness within. A refusal to let distraction pull you away from what you are sensing. A decision to stay grounded even when things feel like they are moving quickly. A willingness to pause internally so you can recognize what is actually happening instead of reacting impulsively. Because when everything begins to shift, the natural tendency is to rush, to overthink, to try to control every detail. But that is not alignment. Alignment is clarity without chaos, movement without panic, awareness without confusion. So the first part of your response is this: remain steady. Do not allow your mind to run ahead of the moment. Do not try to force outcomes. Do not create unnecessary pressure around what is already unfolding. Instead, stay present. Because everything you need to recognize will appear in real time. The second part of your response is trust. Not blind trust, but informed trust. Trust in what you have already felt. Trust in the clarity that has replaced confusion. Trust in the sense of knowing that has been growing within you. Because the moment that is coming, the interaction, the connection, the opportunity, it will not require you to guess. It will not leave you uncertain. It will come with a sense of alignment that feels natural, even if the situation itself is new. And in that moment you must trust it. Not question it into delay. Not analyze it into hesitation. Not trust it enough to move. Because movement is the third part of your response. You cannot remain passive in an active moment. You cannot stay still when something is clearly opening. You cannot hold back when the path is presenting itself in front of you. This does not mean reckless action. It means responsive action. Action that matches the clarity you feel. Action that aligns with the opportunity that appears. Action that confirms your readiness to step into what has already been unlocked. And here is the part many people overlook. Alignment also requires release. You cannot step fully into what is next while holding on to what has already been removed. You cannot move forward while mentally revisiting what has already been overturned. You cannot carry the weight of the previous season into the space that has been cleared for you. So let it go. The confusion, the delay, the questions about what happened, the need to fully understand every detail of the past. Release it, because it no longer has a place in where you are going, and holding on to it will only slow what is meant to move freely now. You are not meant to carry that into your next season. You are meant to walk into this next phase lighter, clearer, more aligned. And finally, your response must include awareness. Not just awareness of what is happening externally, but awareness of how you are moving internally. Pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to your instincts. Pay attention to what feels aligned and what do not. Because now your discernment is active, and it will guide you if you allow it. It will show you what to move toward. It will show you what to step away from. It will confirm what belongs and what does not. But only if you listen. Only if you stay connected to it. Because alignment is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about staying aware enough to move correctly when it matters most. And that moment is here. You have been prepared. You have been positioned. You have been brought to this exact point for a reason. Now all that remains is your response. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you are ready to move. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your decisions. Now listen, because this is the moment everything becomes clear. Not partially clear, not slowly unfolding, but unmistakably clear. You are no longer standing at the edge of something new. You have already crossed into it. This is not a preparation phase anymore. This is not a waiting season anymore. This is not a moment of uncertainty anymore. This is your transition completed. Because everything that needed to happen before this point has already taken place. The interference was exposed. The plans that were set against you failed. The tables were overturned. The atmosphere shifted. The messenger was sent. The key has been placed within your reach. The moment has arrived, and your awareness hath been activated. There is nothing missing. There is nothing delayed. There is nothing standing between you and what is next. You are in it now. And this is why something inside you feels different. Not just lighter but clearer. Not just calmer but more certain. Not just aware but aligned. Because when you step into a new season, it does not always begin with loud celebration. It begins with a quiet knowing. A deep internal shift where you realize that what once held you no longer has access. That what once confused you no longer has influence. That what once delayed you no longer has permission to operate in your life. That is where you are now. You have entered a season where things begin to move differently. Where doors do not resist the way they used to. Where opportunities connect more naturally. Where your decisions carry more clarity and less hesitation. Where your path feels guided instead of uncertain. And here is the truth you must hold on to. This season will not look like your past. It will not feel like the previous cycle. It will not carry the same patterns, the same delays, or the same confusion. Because you are no longer the same person who walked through that. You have changed. You have been refined. You have been positioned for something that requires a different level of awareness, a different level of clarity, a different level of alignment. And now you are walking in it. So do not look back. Do not revisit what has already been closed. Do not question whether this shift is real. Do not doubt what you now clearly feel. Because doubt is the only thing that can slow what has already been activated. Instead, move forward with certainty. Move forward with awareness. Move forward knowing that what is ahead of you has already been prepared and is now fully accessible. And understand this: what begins now will continue to unfold. This is not a single moment. This is a season of alignment, a season of access, a season where things begin to connect in ways that make sense after everything you have experienced. And as you move forward, you will begin to see it. The right connections, the right opportunities, the right moments appearing at the right time. Not by force, not by struggle, but by alignment. Because that is what happens when you step fully into what has already been prepared for you. So stand in this moment. Receive it fully. Acknowledge that you are no longer where you were, and declare it with certainty. You have entered your new season. Type "I have entered my NEW season" in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 1212 is now activated over your life. As you step into this new season, understand this: every word you have received here is not just for you. It is a light meant to reach countless others who are still standing in darkness, waiting for their moment of awakening. When you release your support through Super Thanks or through the PayPal link in the description or QR code, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing into a harvest of transformed lives. The Lord declares, "Those who sow in faith will reap in abundance," and right now, your seed becomes a river of living water flowing into souls that need clarity, direction, and hope. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to respond not just in hearing, but in action, saying, "I will be part of what God is doing." Your giving is not ordinary. It is prophetic. It is alignment. It is participation in a divine mission that is moving right now. Heaven sees it, multiplies it, and returns it in ways beyond what you expect. So act now, give now, and let your obedience become the key that unlocks blessings not only in your life, but in the lives of many others.